There we go. All right. Good morning, day. Get this little sound check underway. Hi, guys. So, all right. Tell me, you should hear an ARP and a sustain, and when I talk, it should duck, and my vocal should be a little bit louder in the mix than last time. So if you can hear me clearly, great. Who is that sexy bass player? Geddy Lee's here? Chris Squire? Anyway. So, audio's coming through, I hope. It works great. The music can always be a bit quieter. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bump the mic slightly so that when I'm talking, relative levels should be higher. So you tell me. All right. So we're sustaining and I'm talking over it. Is the voice clear enough? Let me know. And if not, we may have to just deal today, and then in the next iteration, I'll try and address it even further. So we're playing. Here, let's get everything running. There we go. Talking over that. Voice is clear. Okay. Good enough. And we can iterate and get it better over time. All right. Rich and Duffy, thanks for showing up. So it's Christmas Eve day. I'm super excited. This is the first Christmas holiday since my son moved out as an adult. So it's just my wife and myself and the dog. And now he's coming back. He'll sleep here tonight and we'll all get up tomorrow morning. But it's sort of like a little weird, you know? So it's Christmas Eve morning for me, Christmas Eve day for people in Europe. It might be, I think Simon in Thailand is 12 hours from me ahead. So it's 8 p.m. there. So we'll see. Morning, Om. All right. So what's different today? What we're going to do is more of the same from the other day. We're doing it in a different key, right? So we're in D Dorian. And D Dorian is, I think, an interesting mode to work in because the bottom half has sort of a minor feel to it, the bottom half of the scale, and the top half has a major feel. So it's like, right? So that's the first 5 scale degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But the top half, it feels major. Right? So depending on where you move your tonal center to, if you focus on D a lot, which we do, we hover on the root, it feels sort of dark minor. But if you shift it up to G, it's a little happier. So I like playing in Dorian a lot, actually. So that's where we're going to be today. Right, so you can get these sort of dissonant things, right? see where we go from there. Now, unfortunately, I have a bit of a sinus thing going on. So because the mic is so close to my schnoz, I will occasionally have to sneeze or cough or something like that, and I'll try and remember to mute the mic. So heads up, there's a limiter on the microphone channel, so if I actually sneeze uncontrollably, hopefully no one will go deaf. How wide is your homemade rack? Oh, okay. This rack is 168 HP wide and 2 banks, 6U. It's the longest Z rails that Tip Top made 12 years ago, 10 years ago. So 168 times 2, we could do the math to figure out what the metric is for performance on that. So it's as wide as the Dope for Monster rack. I guess. I'm not sure. All I knew is at the time, and I regret actually, because it's super not portable. It's really hard to travel with it. But let me do this. Just vary what's going on in the background a little bit. Yeah, it's super not portable. It's built from 3/4 inch like pine boards that I somehow got lucky and picked ones up at Home Depot that didn't warp over the years. So it's still relatively straight. And it was my very first woodworking project, if you can call it a project. So it's a pine box I slapped together basically. And that's how I built it. And the buses in it are the Tip Top Zeus power buses, 2 actives and 2 passives. I think I showed in a previous stream, I'm not an electrician at all, so like the power is run correctly, but I didn't install a switch correctly. I've got wires hanging out the back, and then there's a power, like a electronics power kit box, like for breadboarding, that's got a big honking switch on it, which I don't want to touch because it's a little tweaky. And if I pick it up to show it to the camera, I'll probably lose power. So let's see. Yeah, I looked into the monster rack. Yeah, it's weird. Because it's so wide, I have to, if I do want to run something across it, I need really long cables. So I kind of wish it was 104, or maybe even smaller with stacks this way. But, hey, live and learn. But, all right, let's see. Mr. Lawrence, Marty. So, Merry Christmas from Melbourne. Nice. Where is Christmas Day? Well, Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas, man. So thanks for joining us. I will try and play periodically. I think D Dorian is fun because the bass likes to hover around D below E. But for Christmas, I'm a big Christmas person. So my mother's business was Christmas. She had a company called Christmas Joys, and as a teenager, was not great because my weekends were involved with making a few pieces of the stuff she would sell. And but over the years, our core values are set at those times, right? And she had a sign above her workshop that said, "I believe in Santa Claus." Master power button is a dog. Is dog operatable? What was this? What am I got to pay attention to the chat. Master power button is dog operatable. Yeah, potentially. Will you explain how your DAW and the rack connections communicate? Sure. Oh, and I'll get back to my Christmas story. So there's going to be a thread through today's stream about Christmas. So And for people who don't celebrate Christmas, that's cool. You know, we have a lot of friends who are Jewish. I've got a lot of friends who are Muslim. You know, friends who are Zoroastrian. I work in tech. I have a lot of Indian friends or friends from, you know, Persia, things like that. But let's see. Explain how your DAW and the rack communicate. Okay, so the rack, let me continue to vary some things here. Let me change the pattern up, Rich, and then we'll talk about that. All right, let's see. All right. So, how does the DAW and the rack communicate? Well, the modular is pretty basic. It's sequencers. It's pretty basic. I'm not saying it's small, but it's the routing is relatively simple. Okay, I like control, so I'm a control freak. I've got 3 sequencers. We're only using 2 of them this morning. We're using these 2 Metropolics. They're controlling oscillators. Each Metropolix has 2 voices. All right. I have no mixing or effects in the modular, right? Which might be heresy for a lot of people, but I don't travel with this. So my need to go perform out live, I don't use this for that, right? I have other hardware synths. I have a DAW-less rig I go to play out with. It's not modular. So I don't have any mixing in here, and I literally run everything into this Motu 24AI interface here. All right. And it's basically 24 analog line inputs, and it's got a high enough headroom that I can just run the modular signals in and nothing clips. It's all fine. All of that runs down into a Motu 8A 8-channel audio interface, and it runs from here to there over AVB through Ethernet. All right, so the Ethernet is sending streams of audio from this input down into an 8A, which is what I've got attached to the computer. All right, then within Ableton, I'm using Ableton Live. Ableton is just looking at one interface, not a composite. It's literally just looking at the 8A, and the 8A is presenting into Ableton 24 plus 8 plus a few other derived audio channels. So I've got like 40 inputs running into Ableton. The list is like really long. I'm not set up to show you the desktop right now, but and then Ableton is doing all the effects processing, and it's doing all the mixing. And I've got a push here that I've got in mixer mode, and I can bring anything up and down, right, just by playing knobs. And then the bass, is just a VST in Ableton that I've had this patch for years, and this is my bass tone, and I use this. The sub and the matriarch are also running into this interface, and they're coming in. Clocking is done by this tiny little module here from a company called Circuit Happy in Somerville, Massachusetts, a guy named Ed. It's a little 2HP module that provides clock and reset, and it gets on the Wi-Fi network and speaks Ableton Link protocol across the network. So if you have, you know, an Akai Force or an MPC that does Ableton Link, or your other laptop or your iOS devices or any other device on the network, on this Wi-Fi network, it will send synchronization clock and reset timing across to everything. This little thing is the master, right? The leader. It's sending out clock and reset, and I've got it multed out to all the sequencers, right? But it's also feeding into Ableton. Ableton's aware of it if it was on the network, which for some reason my laptop keeps dropping off the network from time to time. I'll let that finish. And everything stays synchronized, right? And like in this case, my laptop, for whatever reason, dropped off the network. Now it's back on there. But because its clock was steady and there's really no digital clock drift, I can reconnect and everything works fine. But so like synced delay effects and things like that in Ableton match the clock of the entire system. That's how that works. So let me scroll back. I hope that answers your question, Rich. But that's how they communicate. So yeah, we're using a Wi-Fi network. There's a router sitting on top of this thing that's not connected to my house Wi-Fi. It could be, but I like to keep things isolated, right? I don't want someone, my son, when he was home, sucking up all the bandwidth. I don't know, or sending traffic. Who knows what could happen. So we try not to do that. All right. Let's see. Rockstar Artist. Hello from Puerto Rico. Nice. Hey, good morning and happy day of Christmas Eve. So, Rich says, your wife wants to stay at my home during Christmas now? All right. Yeah, I'll continue my Christmas story in a minute. But let me try and get caught up in the chat here. Davi, your birthday's the 25th. Nice. Okay, happy birthday. That's awesome. Yeah, 40 ins. It's because the rest of the room is full of synths, hardware synths, so I needed a lot of inputs. Also, these Motu 24As are relatively cheap. So the 24A has the inputs, and the AVB networking is sending it all to another Motu interface that only has 8 inputs, but it works fine when you aggregate them all, not in the machine, but within AVB. The routing table looks scary. I did a video on it that shows the routing table. Ivan, hello. Joe Sweeney, happy Christmas. Nice. Slovakia, really cool. Miro, nice to meet you. And if I have spoken to you guys in chat or comments before and I've forgotten, I am not like a few other people who remembers everybody's names. So you'll have to remind me, okay? Hopefully over time, relationships will connect. But Sydney, nice. Man, we're all over the globe. Let's see. Where we're not going to get some of the folks from California, probably because they're still asleep. But that's okay. What else am I missing? Okay, we're caught up. So for people who just joined, what are we doing? We're in D Dorian. There's a sort of a Christmas theme here. I like D Dorian because the bottom half of the scale sounds mysterious and minor, and the top half sounds major and kind of happy. On the network, good. So let's talk about the modular. So this Metropolix here is running, this is what we're listening to, the 2 channels of this Metropolix. It's aware of the key and mode. It's in D Dorian, and we've got pattern 1. All right, pattern 1's going through 4 stages with 12 pulses. So the sequencers, I did a video on small sequencers and step sequencer math. I used to be like, the more stages, the more steps a sequencer had, the better it was my opinion, right? It was like, why would I want a 4-step sequencer when I can have an 8-step sequencer or a 16-step sequencer? Obviously, they're better. They have more options. And that's kind of a wrong. It's yes and no. It depends on how you use them, right? Looking at the Buchla, right? The Buchla music easel, right? Which I don't own, but I have the virtual one from Arturia. I have a friend who has one, Eric. I see him at the New England Synthesizer Festival, and he would be kind enough to bring it. The sequencer, the step sequencer, if you can call it that, on the Buchla music easel is 5 steps. And I always thought that was weird. I'm just like, why 5, right? Well, it's because you can do a lot with just a few steps. Now, the Metropolix has 8 stages. Okay, a stage is, you can think of it like a step. You have 8 sliders where you set the pitches, right? But for each stage, it has another slider for pulses. You can have from 1 to 8 pulses. So really, any stage can repeat 1 to 8 times. And you don't have to do them linearly. That's what we're hearing right now. It's going, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's what those stages are doing. But you could tell the Metropolix to go in any one of like 40 or more different sequence orders, right? It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. It can be odd numbers, even numbers. Odd numbers, prime numbers, right? Interesting patterns. Go pull up a software-based arpeggiator and look at all the different sort of patterns that it will arpeggiate in. The Metropolis does that when it's going through stages, all right? And then we'll get into some of the other features. But here we're going through 4 stages and there are 12 pulses. So while it's going through those 4 stages, it's looping around and counting pulses as it goes, and it will keep looping through the stages until it hits the maximum pulse count, in this case 12, and then it resets. So it gives us this feel of being in 3. Even though I'm going through 4 stages, I have 12 pulses. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now I can change that by changing the pulse count from 12 to 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can have control over the feel, and you can do it on 2 different tracks. So the Metropolis has 2 tracks. All right, so now we got this sort of, I get confused if it's polyrhythm or polymeter, but I've basically got something that feels like 3 against something that feels like 4. And if you don't have like a kick running, so I'm not doing any rhythm today, we're not going to have a kick drum or anything like that, but if I had a kick going on every beat, it is very conducive to, that style of music, right? Where you get this cool sort of, your brain gets, it sits up and says, hello, what was that? Because the kick is this steady 4/4 on the 4 kind of thing. And you've got this accenting and notes playing that are in these shifting, phasing patterns of 3/4. Really interesting. Trying to keep up with the chat here. Let's see. Dorian is happiness. I do love Dorian. Let's see. You like the bass. Thanks. I get a lot of comments about the bass. I did a video on it. It's just a VST that's got a bunch of layers, and I've been tweaking it over the years. And I really like Prog. I like Berlin School, and I like prog rock. I'm a big fan of Chris Squire. I'm a big fan of Geddy Lee. And they were formatively played Rickenbackers early on in their careers. And I like that sound. Let's see. Alessandro, thank you for joining us. Johnny, beat steps about the coolest I've seen. I assume you're talking about the sequencer. Euclidean sequencers. Yes, I haven't messed too much with Euclidean sequencers. I'm playing with one in Max for Live right now, and that'll show up sometime in the month of January. And everyone loves Stepic, right? I got to test an early version of Stepic, and I like it a lot. My problem is I have an abundance of sequencers at my beck and call right now, so Stepic, while I really like it, and it's definitely powerful, I don't use it. So for a long time, I used a piece of software called Numerology from 512. Which is a Mac only. Basically, it's almost like the Reason Rack, but for step sequencing. It's got many, many different variants of different kinds of sequencers. It's a great app. It's still available. But that 512 makes a really amazing Eurorack sequencer now too. I can't remember what it's called. It's huge though. It's like 68 HP or something, or 80 HP. Let's see. The description was good. Good. Do I have a MIDI module in the Eurorack? I do not. I have a Pittsburgh Modular MIDI 3. It's sitting over there. It is actually probably going to be a gift to a friend. This may be evil. I have a friend who is a synth buddy like us, and he's local to me. And he's interested in modular, but he doesn't really want to get into it because of the slippery slope and impact to the wallet. And so I've got an extra tip-top happy ending kit over there with a power bus, the flying bus boards, a MIDI, Pittsburgh Modular MIDI 3, and nothing else. It's just MIDI and power in an empty rack. And I'm thinking about dropping it off as a semi-loan, right? I don't necessarily want to give it to him. It's a significant investment in while we're friends that puts pressure on someone, right? I'm not looking to start having an expensive gift exchange with this guy. But I do like the idea of being a drug dealer and dropping off an empty modular rack. Here you go, buddy. And just to see what happens. He's really tightly space constrained in his studio, too. He doesn't have room for it. And I just want to give it to him and be like, ooh. All right. Super nerd. All right. Let's play a little bit. Let's take everything to 16. Let's work in 4s. All right. There's that. We can go major in Dorian as well. All right, so that was that minor feel to the major feel. So we get that sort of mystical. We can go either way. I'm trying to keep up in the chat, guys. Stepic and MIDI module. So no MIDI module on the rack. The hardware rig, the rest of the studio, I like Motu gear because I live in Boston, and Motu is a local company to Boston. So I use a Motu 128 Express 8-port MIDI interface. That's what drives the main synths in the main rig. I did a video explaining with a chart and a diagram of how the AVB works and everything like that. Although I tore it all up a bit when the modular arrived last month. So, it shifts. You know how it is. You constantly go back into cable hell and reroute your studio periodically. That's the lifestyle, right? Let's see. Spent part of the evening jamming. Nice. I'm glad, Joe. Inspiration is good. Omnisphere. Yeah, this bass is from Omnisphere. I should clarify. It's running in Omnisphere. The Rick bass is from the Trillion expansion. I said in the previous stream, I'm a huge Eric Persing fan, like super fan. I don't want to say anything inappropriate, but I like Eric Persing. I like his sound design. So the bass is Trillions, one of the bass guitars out of the Trillion library, running in Omnisphere, and then a Moog Taurus sound layered on top of that. I did a video on how this bass sound is built. We can go find that. Search for Rickenbacker bass on the channel. My parents should have called me Rickenbacker instead of Richard. Sure, why not? Let's see. How to lure your friends into Modular and see them go bankrupt. Yep, that's what we're doing. I am nothing if not an enabler. On another Discord server, so there's a channel called the Midlife Synthesist. He and I are acquaintances. I've never met him in person, but we've talked a lot. We share the same birthday, and on his Discord, I am well known for pushing. Buy more synths. Everyone needs to buy more synths. So. Let's see. Johnny says, I kind of use everything, but mostly Euro. Yep. So I was super big into Euro 10 years ago. Had a system double this size. So, I mean, there are people with way more, but that was a lot for me. And I sold it all and then got into monolithic, keyboard synths because this was driving me crazy because I'm all about tuning and I'm all about precision. So I work in software, which that's sort of a joke there because software crashes a lot and full of bugs, so it's not necessarily precise. But this was bugging me. So I moved out of Modular into monolithic hardware synths and did a significant investment there. I've got a big collection that I'm really happy about, and I write music and I collect synths. And those two mindsets are not reconciled. I'm okay with that. So I collect synths. I've got a synth collection. They're all on racks, but they're not all wired in. And then some of them are over there in that corner there. And those are the synths I actively am playing on and off these days. Although right now I'm focusing on the Modular. But it's okay for me to collect and have a synth sitting over there that I haven't touched in 6 months. It's okay. It's part of the collection. I'm okay with that. I will pick it up eventually. Go back to it. Like the Cobalt 8. There's a Cobalt 8M. Nice little desktop wavetable synth, right? I haven't touched it in maybe a year, but I really like it, and it's part of the collection. I'm going to keep it. All right, trying to interleave a little playing with the chit chat. For me, the stream is really more about talking because I really like talking. Let's see. And then, what else we got here? So people were looking at the ES9. I really love Expert Sleepers stuff. In fact, my favorite delay plugin of all time is from Expert Sleepers. It's called Augustus Loop. It's a play on words from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's great. It's a great delay with the world's ugliest angry fruit salad UI. It looks like Windows 3.1. And that may be intentional, but it's really old. All right, there's been a lot of chit-chat. Let's get back. Okay. On the Sphere, yes. Lure your friends into Modular, yes. He hooks it up to the grandmother. Yeah, I really like the Moog semi-modulars. I'm very happy with them. The weird thing on Moog, middle C is 0 volts, and then it goes -5 and +5. And in the rest of my Eurorack rig, it's from 0 volts to 10 volts. So there's some workarounds you got to play with offsets there. So, if you find that you're hooking up your Moog synth into your Modular and the octave shift is extreme, or you're sending low notes from the Moog into the Modular and the Modular is like in LFO territory, you need to offset by a couple volts. So, and I think Erica Synths makes a little 2 HP unit that'll just do that math for you automatically. You run your Moog's CV into that, your pitch CV, and then you can use it in the rest of your Eurorack and not even have to think about it. So I think they still make that. Maybe that was a while ago. Let's change a few things up. All right, so now we've got one voice on this Metropolis and we've got another voice on this one. All right, we'll let those run in the background a bit. All right, let's keep going. I want to get through the chat. Anyway, Expert Sleepers is great. ES9s are good. They're infrastructure heavy though. Like you'll end up having a lot of space being used up for stuff that's really about routing. And that's just the way it is. If you're going to integrate with a computer, that's fine. Just be aware. Let's see. Music Smurf, hello. Let's see. Dr. Cynthia, hello. Nice to meet you. If I've chatted with you guys before, like I said, I'm sorry. I'm a teacher of sorts in the software industry. One of the things I do is teaching. And so I have to consume a lot of names, and so the available registers for storing names is constantly being refreshed. Like new things come in. It's just a pipe, right? New things come in, old things come out. So when I forget your name or forget that we've met, I apologize. Just remind me. We'll keep going forward. Eventually, if I meet you in person, that will stick more. So I do go to KnobCon in Chicago, which I know is hard for a global community to come visit. I'm going to try and get to the UK to a Synth Fest there sometime, and I'd like to go to any of the European sort of. I don't really want to go to trade shows necessarily. I like this sort of community-based stuff, so it's tough, but it's also expensive. So, and I can't afford plane tickets because I got all this stuff, right? Let's see. Can't beat Moog for bass. Yes, I like Moog basses. But you can do bass in a lot of other things too. It's all good. Let's see. No right or wrong. Let's see. My case. Hello. Let's see. Perfect format. Angry fruit salad. Yeah. Old school. Yeah. Angry fruit salad is definitely it's in the jargon file somewhere. Let's see. More chat about Moog. I did a video on Moog. I'm sad that they got bought, but that was they were never in great financial, situation. So, well, hopefully it'll go somewhere good. Oh wow, Dr. Dobbs, you have been around for a while, sweetie. All right, we'll keep it music centered. There's inevitably some nerdery that's going to leak in here. Let's see. Plywood ripped down. Store your wallet somewhere safe. Yeah, for sure. 2 Mother 2s and AGH modules. That would be cool. I give all my money to my wife. Yeah. So my wife just re-entered the workforce. My son turned 21, moved out, and my wife is struggling with that whole, mom for 20 years re-entering the workforce. But we're getting there. I'm going to play for about 5 minutes. We'll see what happens here. Talk amongst yourselves. There we go. Let's get it to sustain. See if we get the matriarch to distort a little bit. Just within its own mixer. Another thing I like to do is to feedback its delay till it starts to overdrive. Got to do that at least once per stream. Let's see. What do we got here? What are we chatting about? Matriarch. I do like the matriarch. I don't have a grandmother. My Moog collection is a Minotaur because it's its own sort of platform. The Sub 37, subsequent 37, again because it's in that sub platform, and then the Matriarch because it's in that semi-modular sort of platform. I do have a Model D reissue, which I did a video on why I spent that money. It was worth it for me. It's not worth it for everyone. If you want a Model D, like an analog Moog Model D, and you're strapped for cash, the Behringer one is perfectly serviceable and, sounds great. I have a bunch of software Model Ds because I like the sound of a Model D. Right, Monarch from Native Instruments, the Micro Monster, Mini Monster. Not the Micro Monster, that's a different desktop synth. The Mini Monster 2, Arturia's virtual Model D. But I wanted a physical Model D from Asheville, North Carolina, so I got it, and I have zero regrets. It was expensive, but when you lay your hands on it, there's a pedigree there. I'm not saying it's the greatest build quality. It's very good, but it's not perfect. But it's pretty nice. And it was half the cost of trying to buy a vintage one. So I figured the collector in me will justify that, right? Let's see. Can't stay long. Hey, Wabbit. Nice. I just showed up. Yeah, you're probably busy today, right? Let's see. Going to Charleston. Nice. Alrighty. So let's talk about Berlin School a little bit, right? We've got to get that in here. What's happening here? So we've got two patterns playing. Close everything down. We've got two patterns playing. All right. They're in D Dorian. All right. Pick a key or scale. I'm not going to reiterate the whole process. Go look at Berlin School, An Uncomplicated Approach, that video, or Berlin School Essentials, or any of the videos in the Berlin School playlist, right? My method for working is pretty much the same. I've got a pattern. It's in a key. It's playing a relatively simple repeating figure, right? I've got an assload of delay and a bunch of reverb on it. It gives me that spacey sort of ambient feel. I wouldn't call it ambient music. You can do Berlin School ambiently, and you can do ambient music with Berlin School influences. I'm not a genre person, and I'm not a methodology pedantic person. I did get a comment the other day. Someone was like, isn't Berlin School have to be pure hardware? No, I don't think so. there are people who may say that, but nah, use whatever you want, right? You can do Berlin School on, a series of iOS apps. It's about the approach. And I feel that the approach is, hearkening back to an earlier day where they had a limited amount of control over the system, right? Small sequences, things like that. Doesn't mean you can't use long sequences. But so this is a pattern. It's in a key. It's got a bunch of delay and reverb on it to give us something rhythmically interesting. And then texturally, the timbre of it, that all of those individual notes are being held by that sort of black hole reverb and forming a bed in the background, right? And then what we do is we take layers, we layer a couple on top of each other. Like you could do that. A layer could be, we're going to play a melody over that. Or a melody in the bass line. Or you can then go and put another pattern over it. So I've got another sequencer with a pattern playing. And you just balance them. Just do layers and then let things sustain and then reach over and change the patterns. Right? That was a pretty graceless transition on my part, right? It takes practice, right? Let's see. What is this? This is this sequence. Let's put a ratchet or two in here. Let's go here. A little too much. It's a lot about experimentation, right? There are very few mistakes, right? I could sneeze and knock over a synth. That would be a mistake, right? But like note selection, picking the sounds you play, there are really no mistakes there, especially if you work within a key. Pick a key, a root, and a mode. Any notes you play are going to sound pretty good for the most part. And if they add dissonance, we'll talk about that in a second. Let me fix this pattern up. All right, so there's a little ratchet. Now let's put an accumulator on that ratchet so we change the pitch when it ratchets. All right. So if you're using a grid, I'm a big fan of grids. Most grids, Launchpad Pro Mark III is a very nice grid for playing. This is the Push, Ableton Push. This is like the Cadillac, right? I'm really bought into Ableton as well. I use it for a lot of things. I like programming in Max for live building, and little tools for myself. Having a push is nice if you're tightly integrated with Ableton, but you don't have to, right? Launchpads are great. I know a guy who uses the Akai Force, another great grid. Monomes, there's lots of options. But if you've got a grid controller that will display by lighting up things the scale and mode you're working in, I like to work in chromatic mode, where the lights show me the things that are in key, and the unlit pads are the things that are outside the key. All right, so I still have the option to play outside the key I'm in if I feel like it, right? So let's see if I can give you an example. This may be an example of where I play something that is technically jazz, right? May not sound great. So if we're here, right? So that transitional note, I'll do it again. In key, right? That middle note is not in key, right? And if I play it just normally while this pattern's playing, and if I just hover on it, it sounds like it's not right. Right? I'm playing outside the key, right? So you want to kind of stay within the key when you're doing your note selection, right? But you can use them as passing tones, like on your way from something that's in key to something that's still in key, and you can go outside the key minute, and it adds tension. Yeah, that's not a great example, but well, hey, live stream. It's not planned, and I'm no musical genius for sure. So let me see. Let me catch up on the chat here. Let's see. Discussion of purchases. That's good. Let's see. New modules. Guys triggering VSTs with their Eurorack stuff. Oh yeah. You can go both ways. It is a great time to be making music because no matter what, you could glue everything together, right? One of the earliest videos I did way back in the channel is called The Perfect Synthesizer. Back when I was a little more preachy, and it's a video about how you can work in the small and have a tiny little synthesizer. And then you can work in modular or in software and start gluing and connecting synthesizers. We stack them with MIDI or we stack them in the modular. And then now we're at a place in our world where the connectivity is so good, you can start stacking these sort of macro synthesizers, right? I've got a synthesizer I built in AUM on my iPad, and it speaks MIDI across the Wi-Fi to my laptop, to my VSTs there, which is integrated with an ES9 or through Link to my modular, right? And all of that can be controlled from my semi-modular sending CV and gate out, so I can hit a note and it's triggering something on my iPad, right? Like this entire system. I find that's very true for people in my category. So the Synth Seeker channel is secretly about building musical systems, right? It happens to be in the Berlin School framework. I like building musical systems. I don't like to say generative. Sometimes I do. I was joking with a friend the other day at lunch. We were talking synths, and we said the word generative, whenever I see that used on YouTube, and I'm not saying people use it wrong, but it's funny. Generative to me means that the system of music that person has built has grown in complexity so that they can no longer hold it entirely in their head. So we call it generative, which means I don't know how it works, but it sounds good, right? Which is not true. People build generative systems and they know what they mean. But for me, it's funny to think of it that way, right? So let's see. The Launchpad Pro Mark III is the best value. I agree. I think if you need a grid controller that does scale mode, also works DAW-lessly. A couple months ago for the local New England synth meetup, I did a DAW-less performance using a Launchpad Pro and a Nord A1 lead, a rack unit, and a Roland TR-8S drum machine. Just those three pieces of gear. Everything was controlled by the Launchpad Pro. It's got 4 channels of sequencing. Incredibly fun, and it fit in like a canvas duffel bag. It was fantastic. So, highly recommend the Launchpad Pro. Oh, I'm starting to sound like a shill. I should get some feedback or kickbacks from Arturia. Hey man, send me a check. Let's see. Yeah, building systems for sure. All right, let's change this around a little bit. We'll put a layer on it. We'll get a heavy. Here, we'll build a system right now. All right. 3 patterns running, okay, in the modular. 1 on this Metropolis, 2 on this one. All right, those are running. Now we'll go to our bass. All right, and we'll turn on the bass's arpeggiator. And we'll turn on the hold so that when I hit a note, it'll just latch and hold it. Right? Get your guitar out. I don't know if Synchrotron's here, Andy, but Andy plays guitar over his modular. We'll put a little crunch on it, a little chugging. All right, so now we've got our VST arpeggiator synchronized to our modular. The modular's got patterns running Berlin School style. Bass is playing an arpeggiated, just one note running. By the way, if you're doing, if you're using a synth bass guitar, like sampled kind of thing like this is, and you want it to sound chuggy like this, turn the gate length of the arpeggiator over 100%. So the notes overlap. In an omnisphere, it'll round robin the different samples for the bass. So it really sounds like you're just holding that note and chugging the bass. Little feel of like the Police's Synchronicity 2, right? A little strum in there. Another thing you can do is do octaves. And you do a 3-note octave, so you get this sort of triplet feel. Not triplet feel, but da-da-da-da. Turn the hold off. And we'll kill the ARP. So there was some noodling. Let's bring this all down a little bit. That run for a bit. Let's see. Subharmonicon. So I had the Moog Studio at one point, the Mother 32, the DFAM, and the Sub. And actually I had 2 Mother 32s. So I had the sort of the 4-tier thing. I liked it. but it really requires a certain amount of intention and focus to really, really use it well. Out of all of it, my favorite was the DFAM for sure, because it's the most approachable, I think. The Mother 32 is also very approachable, but the DFAM is like really limited. If you don't consider patching, right? Just within it, like all the Moogs are pretty much one knob per function for the most part. But the DFAM is exceptionally responsive when you just start turning knobs. It does things that are very easy to internalize. So I really like the DFAM. But when I was getting out of Modular, those semi-modulars went away too. So I might get a DFAM again, or look at the Behringer clone, right? I don't want to get into the whole Behringer clones versus counterfeits thing. I have some Behringer gear. I really like the K2. So, a very inexpensive MS-20 clone. All right, let's see. Where we got here? Alternate controllers, the jam stick. What is it? Gary P. Hayes. So there's another Berlin School performer, Gary P. Hayes. P is in Paul. I'm not sure what his middle name is. He does amazing Berlin School stuff. It's super fun, and he's really productive. He does like a lot of videos. And about half of them are performances and half are performances plus explanation. Go check out his stuff. But he plays a MIDI wind instrument a lot as well, which I was never into wind instruments because I don't really want to play an instrument you have to clean your own saliva out of. But he does, and it's really cool. So very expressive. Bitwig. I'm pretty sure you could do it. Everything I'm doing here you could do with Bitwig. The Noodler. Noodler's really popular, and I haven't got my hands on it, but some friends who have one, they swear by it. So, yeah, Gary is nice. I've never met him, never really had a conversation with him. Left a few comments, but man, his stuff is amazing. I get ideas from him. All right. How are we doing on time? Where are we here? I know people got things to do. It's Christmas Eve. Where are we? That's actually something I don't know how to do. How do I find out how long the stream is? You guys tell me. How long have we been going? Oh, I suppose I could look at the clock. So where are we? We're about an hour. Okay. They make this thing. It tells time. All right. For me, whenever you say clock, I don't think clock. Right? I think clock. Blinking lights. That's the clock, obviously. Clock. All right. So I think we're at an hour. My father's coming over. Oh, really quick. Christmas story. So we'll close this out with story time. So my mother's business was Christmas. She made Christmas ornaments and these beautiful Santa Claus figures out of fabric. They were plush, and they sat on a stand, and she hand painted them and decorated them, and would go to shops and buy jewelry and things like that were, human jewelry, chains and bracelets and things. But in the context of a figurine that's this tall, they look like chains and, straps and things like that. A watch band makes an amazing and sort of Santa Claus style belt buckle when you put it on a figurine and things like that. So that was her business. So as a result, for me growing up, Christmas was the best time of year, right? And it less about commercialism. And yes, presents, and I'm a kid, and I like getting toys and things like that. But I believe I might get a little sappy here. Well, I believe in Santa Claus. Play through it. So we know the realities, right? But when you're talking to a kid and they're like, you believe in Santa Claus? Like, yeah. They're like, but my parents are Santa Claus. I'm like, that's true. But the way I like to think of it is, he's there, right? In whatever form is appropriate for your culture. And he comes to the ones who need him, who need him most. There's a little jazz for you. All right. A little emotional moment. I do believe. Hope that wasn't too cringy. All right. So, I think that'll do for today. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Appreciate it. Hope I didn't embarrass you. Hope you learned something, or at least got inspired to do something. Berlin School is super fun, and it doesn't have to be Berlin School. Apply this to whatever kind of music you make. Happy to do this. January is coming. I'm going to be doing something like this pretty often. I don't know if I'm going. January is make a piece of music every day in the month of January. I don't know if I can stream every day because the timing is difficult, like finding a time of day to be consistent in streaming. But what I'll probably do is stream on weekends and then do videos in the middle of the week. So that's about it. And all right. Let's close out the chat here. Modulations. Hey, Itinerant Ghost made it. Nice, man. Sorry you missed all the excitement. It wasn't really that exciting. More live stuff. I really like doing the live stuff. This rig is super fun to play live. From a tonality perspective, I may struggle to make it sound different each time because I'm in a wheelhouse that I really like here. But anyway, happy Christmas, everyone. And for those of you who have culturally other things, either things that have passed already or things coming up, celebrate them. I wish you well. I wish you peace. And I will talk to you guys later, at least 36 hours from now. If I'm online before then, yell at me, okay? My wife will kill me. Thanks very much. I'm going to shut the stream down. Have fun.